Hi, welcome back. This is Nyoka,
This is Rachel.
and you are now listening to Operation
Operation
Evil.
Evil.
And today we got a special treat for you. This is actually a very local, in your backyard story. A lot of this information is being relayed from old newspaper articles. There wasn't a whole lot to be found, but I really did some digging and I was able to find a few things. So a lot of this will be coming from old newspaper articles. But first, I want to begin with a poem because I don't think we have any business to take care of, correct? We're good to go?
We are good to go.
We're good to go. All right, so I kill because I'm bored.
Drinking blood is a treat.
Flesh and meat I like to eat.
I kill with guilt or remorse.
Satan, the devil, is the source. That was one of the poems that was found on a loose page of Michael Scott. Michael Scott, I knew him from Scott High School. We all went to school together. And this is the story of him and Brian Owens. So, all right. Parents just want to know why was the article. And they were talking about how police had no suspects in Brian Owens' murder. And from the Cincinnati Enquirer in Covington, when Brian Owens didn't return home from work Thursday night, his parents were concerned. Let me just pause out real quick. This article came out Monday, January 22nd, 1996. Okay. So he did not return home from work Thursday night. His parents were concerned. Brian was 18. He didn't call or return by Friday morning, which was unusual for him. His mother prepared herself for some terrible news, like maybe he was in a car accident. What she was not prepared for was that her son was murdered. And in quotes, she said, "I just want to know who and why." End quotes. Police continue to investigate the death as a murder, but they had no suspects Sunday. Mr. Owens was found laying next to his father's car in Lyons Park near Taylor Mill and Senior Roads around 4:30 p.m. Friday. Police were unable to tell how long the body was there because of the sudden changes in the temperature. It was very cold that night. The Kenton County coroner performed an autopsy Saturday, and the results were not released at this time, but the police were continuing to search for subjects, and they also said that if you had any information to contact the Covington Police Department. But when they were describing his routine, they said that usually he would leave the house at 7:30 a.m. For work, and he worked for a moving company where his father had worked since September. And
Like what, September 95?
yes, September of 95. And yeah, he also went to Scott High School, but he ended up getting his diploma through a homeschool program. But anyways, he worked for this moving company, and he was coming back he returned from Mississippi, moving a company to Mississippi. Okay, so he was already back in routine at this time. He would come in from work, take a shower, change his clothes. His mom said that she was concerned when he didn't come home because it was just out of character for him not to come home or not to call and say what was going on. When he didn't come home Friday morning, she knew that something was wrong. And it turned out to be that Thursday would be the last day that she saw her son. But she did say, quote, he was as happy as he could be. And that she just would have never expected the news that she got. So what was the news? What happened to Brian?
So Brian Owens was stabbed on January 18th, 1996. Just after 7 p.m. is what the police, I guess, narrowed it down to, and by witnesses. And one of the things was they couldn't. His body that night, the temperatures were like 7 degrees. They it was freezing. They think, well, the police found him about 4:30 p.m. the next day. So this would have been, what, January 19th they would have found him, right?
Yep.
So for several days, the detectives spoke to family and teens in the area, focusing their attention on one boy that seemed to stand out, I guess, to a lot of people. And there was an anonymous phone call that directed them to Michael Scott. The caller later identified as Sean Price, which was Scott's stepfather. He told police Scott had told him details of the murder. Price said he was afraid more people would die.
Wow.
Yeah. So Michael Scott told him he was on a mission that and this is a quote, he was on a mission that he is into Satan worship and he was out to collect a soul. So Michael Scott's stepfather tells the police this, and then he says he said he was going to retrieve another soul in 3 or 4 days.
Oh, which is why I'm sure.
Yeah, why he was like, I gotta get to the police. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So immediately after the stabbing, Michael Scott went into a nearby restaurant and someone saw him. Well, it says where he tried to clean some of the blood off of his hands, so it's not really said if someone saw him or if that's actually what he told the police. And then after that, he went home, according to a police report, where he masturbated because the excitement was more than he could stand after having killed a man. And that was a quote.
Oh my gosh.
So, I mean, he wasn't, to me, that he's not a person anymore.
No.
So then he began to try to cover his tracks. He threw away the scissors, cleaned himself up, he burned his clothes. He told his great uncle, I guess his great uncle asked him about a cut that was on his leg, and he faked an injury to cover it up. His behavior had already become worse. It was deteriorating. And his father had told police that that's when he really started acting strange. So I guess his father kind of looked back on that and was like, something's weird. He was growling. He would work himself up into a frenzy and snarl and literally drool at the mouth.
Completely normal.
Sure. His father also told police that he had been concerned with his son's fascination with Satan, fire, and with killing. And, which I think Nayoka will probably get into this a little bit more, or we will a little bit later, but, there was rumors of, like, animal killings and things like that.
Oh, yes.
Scott had once told his father that he wanted to be a terrorist. His father instead encouraged him to join the army.
I like how he's like, no, son, no.
Yeah.
Instead of doing this, join the army.
Maybe his thinking was like he had all this teenage angst built up.
That's true.
I don't know. And Scott said he began to fear his son, his father.
Oh.
The father began to fear his son.
That's pretty bad.
Yeah. The way Mike had talked, he was, this is a quote, sorry. The way Mike had talked, he was always a scary kid. And for the past few weeks, we've been living in fear with him. He told police about 2 weeks after the killing. So I'm not for sure who Mike is. Maybe that's, Michael Scott.
Yes.
That's him saying that himself.
Yes. That's pretty interesting that
it's almost like
a parent would fear their child. So
yeah, and it's almost like he's given a prelude to what he's capable of.
Oh yes, these were definitely some signs. Definitely. So in Scott's bedroom, which doubled as the family room, police found what they called a makeshift altar And they also found a collection of stories and drawings that are now part of the police file kept on Brian Owens' murder. Throughout the investigation of the Owens murder, police and prosecutors, they declined to discuss details of the killing or possible motive. Next to nothing came out in court, but Scott's writings that were obtained under state open records laws tell a story that investigators would not. And that's, of course, the poem we talked about at the very beginning. He had other poems and writings. He told tales of death and destruction with vivid portrayals of pain, torture, dismemberment, cannibalism. His pencil drawings exposed a child on the edge of madness. Everything that they found as far as his drawings were just very disturbing and very odd. One showed a skull with a dagger in it, a piece either ripped or bitten off. He sketched hands that were just bleeding, fingers torn or chewed off. He drew crosses hanging upside down, dripping blood.
You know, if anyone that's listening has ever listened to Cannibal Corpse, if you've ever seen, like, the covers of their albums, it's like that kind of stuff.
That kind of art.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a good reference. Yeah. For sure. Also, one drawing he titled Life of Agony. Others contained bloody knives and swords jammed into various body parts. You're getting the drill. Lots of gore, lots of killings. He even had Nazi symbols, KKK symbols, 666. He had slogans of Hail Satan, Hellraiser, Kill, To Hell with Jesus Christ. He even quoted the serial killer Ted Bundy. One paper was a stream of consciousness listing of dozens of words dealing with pain, torture, and death. In another, he apparently was trying, like, to give himself, like, I guess, a serial killer name.
Oh my gosh.
Because that's what people, yeah. That's the same thing that, oh my gosh, BTK
Yeah.
did.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, he gave himself names.
And which is ironic because Michael Scott, come on.
I know. Well, you don't give yourself a serial killer name either. That's something just the media does. But
Yeah.
stuck with. So it's just odd. So here's the names that he felt was pretty good. There was Manic Michael, Mike the Murderer. That's not very creative.
Original.
Sociopathic Scott. Those are just to name a few. During their investigation, police heard stories that he would have taken part in rituals that included killing animals. They heard tales of the desire to sacrifice a human. They heard reports of a clan of Satan worshipers that he wanted to join. But in the end, they couldn't find any groups or cults that connected any of that. Eventually, the police chief, the assistant chief, Bill Dorsey, determined that Scott was just a loner who fantasized in this secret world and had very few friends. I will say, later in prison, doctors would suggest a mental illness that medication might control, but as he entered into his teen years, Michael Scott would have not had the benefit of such psychiatric analysis. He began to have trouble in school in the fall of 1994 when he was 15 and entering Scott High School as a freshman. And I think that's the same year that I went to school with him and we were in the same English class. On October 13th, 1994, he was suspended for skipping school and spitting on a teacher.
Wow.
Yeah. In January and February, he received regular write-ups for lateness and truancy, for threatening and cursing teachers. And before the school year was out, Scott left, never to return. And that makes sense because I feel like trying to think of him during that time period.
Maybe that's why you don't remember him that much.
I don't remember him that much because it was like one day he was there and then next day he wasn't. And I never even spoke to him. He was very quiet. I never heard him speak a word.
Did he come across as a nice person, or do you remember enough?
I don't remember enough because honestly, I don't even remember him speaking. And I didn't sit right next to him. We were just in the same class.
Yeah.
So I don't have any memories like that. So I wanted to reach out to people that may have, that I went to school with, which we'll get into that here in a bit, because I wanted to know what other people, what their impressions were of him, or what they knew about him or of Brian or anything like that related to this, because I just had very little memory of him at all. So it was like he was there and then he wasn't. So after he dropped out, he spent his time just sleeping in, hanging around the house, playing his music at the top volume setting. He was staying up late at night. He was just doing all those like teenage things.
But I guess like intensified
because it was every day now instead of just the weekend, I'm sure. Once his father told him to turn the music down, and Michael Scott threatened him. When his father filed terroristic threatening charges, Scott stayed away from home, often staying with his mother and stepfather. On January 9th, 1995, Scott called his mother, Sue Price, to say he wasn't going to school and wasn't coming home, but would be in touch. I can't imagine getting that phone call from my kid.
I know.
As she watched her son change, Mrs. Price said she felt helpless. She said, quote, "Part of me wants to remember the old Michael, and I told him I'm not holding on to what he has turned out to be. I'm holding on to the son I knew and I raised for 13 years." End quote. Michael Scott's father is reluctant to talk about his son. He tried several times to get him help, but psychiatric care was expensive and he just couldn't afford it. His health insurance wouldn't pay for it. The state, the youth was like hauled into juvenile court several times with little help. Things were very different back in the 90s with mental illness. It just, it was a taboo subject. There was a stigma to it.
There wasn't the education that there is
now.
No,
there wasn't as many resources as there is now. So, I mean, this is a different time. Things just weren't openly available for just everybody like things are today.
I'm sure that he was just looked at as like a troublemaker or a disrespectful kid.
Right.
And things probably happened slowly, maybe.
Yeah. And I mean, who knows? Maybe getting help might not have helped. I mean, we don't know.
Right.
We don't know the state. We're not psychologists. We're not sure. All we know is that it was definitely a different time, different resources, and there were definitely stigmas to these things. But
it's a shame.
It is a shame. So the elder Scott at first agreed to a longer interview with his story, and then he backed out. He set up another appointment, but could not keep it because he entered a hospital earlier that week for alcohol. So he never did talk. Okay. So Mrs. Price could not be reached. Their son had ignored any efforts to change him. In a report dated January 26, 1995, a social worker outlined the ways he could get his life back on track, which listed as attend school, get off drugs, and obey his parents.
To the point.
Yeah. But yeah, so just those three things would have made all the difference, but things took the other turn. So as I said before, just since we're talking about his background and his character and what kind of person he was turning into, I reached out via Facebook to old classmates and wanted to know their impressions. And I do want to give this disclaimer, names that they're either changed or they're not mentioned at all for privacy reasons. Most of these comments are based on personal experiences, impressions, hearsay, and or opinions. So I'm just gonna throw that out there. And here's what our classmate said.
The first one was, he sat behind me in homeroom. He never spoke much.
He was a very depressed young man. He tried to get John Doe to go to the park the night he killed that guy. We all hung out the night before it all happened. He was into satanic shit. He liked to smoke weed and drink.
He had family issues, which is why he was always so depressed.
He said the devil made him do it and that he sinned and had to pay.
John Doe believes if he would have gone to the park with him that night, it would have been him. The scissors he used were John Doe's.
He was an odd character.
He killed Brian Owens because he wouldn't buy him cigarettes or alcohol.
In class, he would stab himself and lick the blood off his fingers like he enjoyed it.
Whoa.
Uh-huh.
He would say shit like he wants to know what it was like to kill someone.
How he got caught was he went to a party, got picked on, and he said, "Leave me alone or you might end up like Brian Owens."
He was a troubled kid. The police found his hideout in the woods behind his house where they found animals, skulls, and skeletons.
He murdered Brian Owens, stabbed him 17 times with scissors.
I remember when they found Mr. Owens' body. He was frozen to the ground.
He killed Brian Owens at Lions Park. Now, you could see Lions Park from Taylor Mill Road after they cleared the land, but in 1996, you had to drive to the park to see if anyone was back there. And there was so much snow and ice that they couldn't patrol back there.
He was a sadistic serial killer in the making. He killed a lot of animals and collected their bones and had them in his hideout in the woods behind his parents' house.
The rumor was that he was robbing him for weed and it went bad.
They said he had the tendency to be the next serial killer due to all of the dead animals.
He took a cat to that JD's Mart, slit its throat, and drank the blood in front of the cashier, and she was mortified.
He was very quiet.
I sat next to him in English class, and he would carve 666 in the desk next to me while I was writing about Juliet.
He was definitely more than a little off, but could have been the first thing he thought of as his reasoning behind his actions. I also heard drugs were involved, not sure on whose end, but with a deal gone bad. I can wrap my head around it a little more than the other.
All right, so those were just some of the things that classmates said and had impressions about him. I thought those were all very interesting.
It's interesting, too, how, there's a couple that say the same things.
They a lot of it's repeated.
Yeah.
The only, if it were my quote, I would just say, he was quiet. I never heard him speak.
Well, you showed me his picture in your yearbook.
Yes.
And, he just looks like a average kid.
90s.
In the 90s, yeah.
Kid, yeah. Which, I will make sure to put that picture along with his prison picture in that article on our Facebook page and Instagram page. Yep. So I'll make sure to do that.
Yeah, because there might be some people that would might like to see this article.
Oh, yes.
The picture.
For sure.
So on April 22nd, Michael Scott, he's 16. He is charged with repeatedly stabbing Brian Owens, who was 19. And he was indicted for murder. And so during his court appearances, he often seemed dazed and nervous. He kept trying to plead guilty against the advice of his lawyer. He would write letters to Kenton County Circuit Judge Steve Jaeger, who was in charge of his case, and he wanted to plead guilty, take his punishment, and move on.
Oh.
That kind of made me angry when I read that, because move on.
Yeah. He just wants to move on with it.
Eventually, he did plead guilty to murder, describing the killing in court simply and without emotion. I stabbed Brian Owens repeatedly until death.
Oh, wow.
Jaeger sentenced him to 27 years in prison.
Wow. Okay. So after he was arrested for murder, he seemed to undergo this transformation. In contrast to his earlier writings, he now talked about love and forgiveness and worship of Jesus Christ. His letters were marked with smiley faces, and he wrote his mother, quote, "There's nothing I'd rather be than your Christian son, and there is no one I would rather have as a mother." He told her that he was repentant. "I couldn't tell you when I saw you, but I confess to what I'm here for. I asked Jesus for forgiveness. I confessed to show I really meant it. And I just asked for forgiveness, and I could have gotten away with it," he said. He asked his mother to keep writing back, saying he liked to read her letters and would imagine her speaking to him. He encouraged his siblings to read the Bible and turn to Jesus. He said that he forgave his stepfather for turning him in. He said that he expected and deserved to be punished. He said, quote, "I was sick for a little while and I needed help. Jesus Christ has been the biggest help," end quote. But his days in the juvenile wing of the Kent County Jail had another side. So his lawyer said Scott often drifted in and out of sanity. One minute he was lucid, the next he was incomprehensible. He would spend hours on his knees praying and talking nonsense, according to a psychological report. Once he was sent to a psychiatric hospital in Louisville after he chewed through his hands in an apparent suicide attempt. Ugh. That's okay. On the day he was sentenced to prison, a report on his psychiatric state was released. It said that he suffered from a serious psychiatric disorder, but could be helped by consistent treatment. Louisville psychologist Dennis Buchholz described Scott as delusional and stubborn and said he often sought to harm himself. Scott had difficulty holding a conversation on a single topic. He reported that an angel had told him to be God's prophet. He was put on lithium, and that was that, basically. So,
and Haldol?
Oh, yes. And which is an antipsychotic drug.
So, when I first read all that, I thought schizophrenia.
Maybe. Or just psychopath, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know. This is just, it's disturbing. Very disturbing. So here he is. He was serving about 20 months. Now remember, he was just sentenced to 27 years. But after serving 20 months behind bars, he found himself alone in his cell one warm fall night. And he took the sheet from his bed and threaded it through the tight wire mesh of the heating duct. And he tried and he tied the other end to his neck. Guards found him hanging, cut him down, and tried to revive him. He was taken to Tri-County Baptist Hospital, but it was too late. He lapsed into a coma on September 12th and passed away September 19th, 1997. He was 4 months past his 18th birthday. Now, I do want to say that I wish I found more on this, and I don't know if there was a problem finding more information because he was a juvenile during this time that this happened. And I know a lot of juvenile information is protected. This was a very difficult case to find.
You know, the other thing I was just thinking too is maybe it was just so bizarre that the media outlets or what have you didn't want to give it any attention.
I don't know. I was honestly surprised about how little I can find on this. Mm-hmm. And I feel like when I was in school, it was like one day he's there, one day he's not. And then one day you hear he killed somebody. And then it was like no one really talked about it. Or maybe I just didn't realize people were talking about it. I don't know what it was.
But we couldn't find much on Brian Owens either.
No. And that's the person I wanted to like try to focus on was the victim and his story. Now I know, let me pull the paper here about him. Okay, so I know that Brian Owens was survived by his father at the time, Gary Owens, a sister, Amanda Owens, a maternal grandmother, Edna Kemper, paternal grandmother, Mary Owens, all local people. It's very, very sad.
Wasn't there many comments about Amanda, how sweet she was?
Yes, I heard so many good things about Amanda. And Amanda, I don't know if you're listening to this at all, but if you would want to tell any story or want to talk about Brian at all or anything like that, I would love to do an update about this with any other information anybody has about him. Special thanks to everybody who they were like tagging other people, trying to get more information, jogging those memories. Let me see here. I wrote a special thanks. So I want to give a special thanks to those who reached out to me about this case and shared their thoughts and information. So much discussion took place in this post. And it was like we were all brought together again. It was very weird, but kind of neat and kind of, but in a sad way. Yeah. And some messaged me personally. Some just made a lot of comments and conversation. It was great. So thank you to everyone who helped me out with this. I appreciate it so, so much. Usually we're kind of like try to be funny and have a good time. And this one is like,
no, we don't, since it's so local and, someone that maybe knows Brian's family or even Michael Scott's family, we just want to be respectful and
absolutely.
We know it's a delicate situation.
Yes. And apparently, through these posts, apparently there was a couple other kids I went to school with that ended up in different kinds of crazy situations that we may have future episodes about.
Oh.
Yeah, I didn't realize that Scott High School had some interesting characters.
Oh, yes. I remember there was reading one of the comments, and I think someone posted a picture of a situation that happened.
Yes. Yeah. So I'll definitely have to dive into that one, too. Thank you. You know who you are if you're listening on who gave that information. So this is kind of a short episode. Wow. Usually it's longer. That's what she said. No.
Michael Scott. Like on a like, I guess, lighter note.
Yes,
Like, as soon
let's
as
have
Naoka,
lighter notes.
yeah, as soon as Naoka told me his name, though, I'm sorry, but I started laughing.
Well, yeah, because I mean, you think of The Office right away.
Right.
Ah.
So that's why it's so funny, like, not funny, but like when he's thinking of like these names and stuff. Whatever.
Oh, man. Yeah. Don't name yourself. If you're going to be a serial killer, please don't try to give yourself the name.
No.
That's just weird. That's just so weird. A little narcissistic.
Well, I mean, he definitely was.
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, sorry if we're opening any wounds for anyone. Again, we, I hope you think that this was very respectful.
Yep. And if not, you can yell at me on Facebook under Operation... No, don't yell at me, please. No. But you can check our Facebook out at Operation Evil Podcast. You can email us. We would love some emails at operationevilpodcast@gmail.com. What else?
We are working on a big project.
Yes.
And it's kind of like a follow-up from...
Kind of like this.
Kind of.
Yeah.
A little bit.
Yeah, I mean, this has been a big this has been in the works for almost a month.
Yeah.
We're finally going to be getting to it. So I'm very excited about that. And for anybody who just listened to this for the first time, please check out our other episodes where we have a little more personality.
Yeah, please don't judge it off of this one.
Yeah, please don't. This one was just a very sad one, but...
I feel like I'm being sad and whiny on this one.
I do too. Like it feels like such a downer.
Yeah.
Altogether. And you know how I found this case?
Oh yes, tell the story.
Okay, so September 11th is tomorrow, and Rachel has been looking into September 11th stuff, and I said,
can't let go of September 11th.
No, she can't.
It's an everyday part of my life. I have to know about
everything.
The survivors, and
it really does affect her.
Yeah.
So I was like, look, Rachel, I have this really awesome 9/11 book. It had like headlines from all these newspapers and stuff all over the world. And let me find that for you. So I'm digging in this box of books because I need a new bookshelf and whatever. I just put it in a box. So I'm digging through. I find the book and my yearbooks are just sitting there. And I was like, oh, wow. I'm going to grab those out and take a look. It's been a while. And I opened that up and that article came out of it, the one with Michael Scott. And I was like, oh my God, I forgot about this. So back then, I had cut out that article and I folded it up and I stuck it in that yearbook. It was just weird how everything happened. And then I posted on Facebook like, hey, do you guys remember this? Can you tell me anything more? And then I'm looking all over the place trying to find more information. I'm like...
And then by the end, there was over hundreds of comments. And we're like, oh my gosh.
I know. It was fantastic, everybody coming together. But that's how I have, like, just thought of it out of nowhere.
But let's take it a step further. Take it. That's for you, Jen.
Take it a step further.
So Naoka and I knew each other 20 years ago.
Yes.
We worked at the store together. I moved up to this area in 2000. I'm not from this area. I grew up in Carroll County. So I moved up here in 2000, and around 2001, Naoka and I were working at the same job.
Yes.
So I stayed there forever. Naoka smartly got out of there.
Pretty quickly.
So, I stayed in retail. Naoka, she did a couple different jobs and things, and then...
I was all over the place.
She had multi-talents.
Thank you.
So in 2000, it was 2020. So 2020, yes. my niece graduates. So my niece for like years has been talking about this person that was like a school resource officer, and she had, this person as a teacher. She just was in love with this guy.
Yeah.
She'd always talk about him. So I was at my niece's, we had went to her graduation, and this is all COVID time. So we're standing outside of my mom's house, and his name is Benny.
Mm-hmm.
Benny comes by to say, like, congratulations to my niece. And then he's just talking and he says his daughter's name, Nyoka. Now, I had no idea what Nyoka had a different last name when we met 20 years ago.
Yes, I was married at the time.
Yeah, and I'm like, wait a minute, he said Nyoka? No way. So, yes. Short
You're
it
like,
down.
how many Nyokas can there be?
So, like, he calls her right on the spot, and she's like, there's no way she's going to remember me. And she remembered me.
I did right away.
Yes. So then
Which is surprising, because I don't remember anything.
Yeah, I stood out in your mind.
You did stand out to me.
So then in that year, like around June or so, an opening came up where Nyoka was working.
Yes.
And I was miserable, so unhappy. And I was on furlough from COVID and all that stuff. And so we just started working together again.
Yes.
So
and you know what's awesome?
crazy.
I didn't say anything about you. I didn't say that I knew you. I didn't know. I mean, nothing. So it was like fate.
Yes.
Took us and put us together. We're soul sisters.
And then she finds this book and then this story. And then
it's just an explosion of awesomeness.
And then what we were, going over our notes and everything today, and I look at Nyoka and I'm like, the anniversary of Michael Scott's death is coming up.
It is.
So we're like, whoa.
So by the time this is released, it's going to be pretty close to that.
Pretty close, yeah.
Yeah.
I think it was the 19th.
Yeah, this would come out like the 14th or something, but close enough.
Yeah.
Interesting how it all worked out. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. We're in love with fate, so
yes. Yeah. we take everything as a sign.
Yeah.
Everything's a sign, but okay. So thank you guys again for listening. I can't wait to do this again next week. So yeah, this is Nyoka.
This is Rachel.
And you just listened to Operation Evil.